Welcome back. I love this film, from its shocking and funny opening through the twists and turns of the story to a conclusion that keeps you guessing right to the very end. It features some of the biggest stars of the day, it's beautifully staged, cleverly shot, and it leaves you smiling long after the film has ended. It is The Philadelphia Story from 1940. This film was adapted from the stage play of the same name, written by Philip Barry, with the central part of Tracy Lord always intended for Katharine Hepburn. Hepburn had returned to the stage following a series of film flops, and not only starred in the play, but financed it, appearing only for a percentage of the profits. The original Broadway production opened at the Shubert Theatre in March of 1939 and ran for 417 performances. The film rights were purchased for Hepburn with the assistance of her boyfriend Howard Hughes. She sold them on to MGM for only $250,000 and an assurance that she would retain control of the film production. At the time, Hepburn was considered box office poison, and without this control she would likely never have been cast. The film was critical in rebuilding Hepburn's career, mostly through how it changed her public image. She was seen as strange and aloof, and playing a character like Tracy, who was similarly rich, privileged and annoying, was powerful. Seeing Tracy knocked off her pedestal and becoming more humble and pliant changed the way the public saw Hepburn, and she became much more popular following this film. Hepburn selected George Cukor to direct after working with him on A Bill of Divorcement in 1932 and Little Women in 1933, and she asked Donald Ogden Stewart to adapt the script. Hepburn wanted Clark Gable to play Dexter Haven and Spencer Tracy to play Mike Connor, but both were unavailable. Cary Grant was given the choice of the two male leads and chose the more subdued character Dexter, as well as securing top billing and a $130,000 salary, which he donated to the British War Relief Society. Katharine Hepburn became interested in James Stewart for the part of Mike following his Oscar nomination for Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and he was subsequently cast. The film was shot in 8 weeks and required no retakes in large because of George Cukor's approach. Cukor had his beginnings on the stage and had earned a reputation as a director who could coax great performances from his actresses. He was open to ad-libbing and would often keep any scenes that had turned out well. In one such scene, James Stewart hiccups when drunk, causing Cary Grant to look down and grin. The unscripted hiccup had Grant on the verge of laughter, and he needed to compose himself quickly. The result is charming, funny and very natural. Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn got along well on set. She actually enjoyed the scene where he pushed her through a doorway, so she fell over backwards. Hepburn said, "A lot of people wanted to see me fall flat on my face." The production faced a number of potential issues with the censors, but managed to navigate divorce, infidelity, alcoholism and extramarital sex. In one scene, Katharine Hepburn refers to the words used to describe the moon goddess, chaste and virginal, as foul, in an effort to appease the censors, which it did. The film premiered in New York in December of 1940 at select theatres, as MGM had agreed to delay the general release to avoid competition with the stage play which was touring the country at the time. The film went into general release in January of 1941 and broke a box office record previously held by Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs at Radio City Music Hall, taking $600,000 in just 6 weeks. While radio adaptations were typically made to promote an upcoming film, numerous radio productions were made after this film's release to tap into its popularity. A 1-hour radio adaptation was produced by the War Office for their Victory Theatre Summer Series in 1942. Lux Radio Theatre broadcast a 60-minute radio adaptation the same year. 2 half-hour episodes were made for the Screen Guild Theatre in 1942 and 1947, and Theatre Guild on the Air broadcast a 60-minute radio adaptation in April of 1948. In 1940, New York Times critic Bosley Crowther wrote that the film has just about everything that a blue-chip comedy should have. A witty romantic script, adapted from a successful play, the flavour of high society elegance in which the patrons invariably luxuriate, and a splendid cast of performers, headed by Hepburn, Stewart and Grant. 75 years later, Peter Bradshaw wrote in The Guardian, "However stagily preposterous, the Philadelphia Story is also utterly beguiling, funny and romantic. The film and wit rise like champagne bubbles, but there is a deceptive strength in the writing and the performances." The film was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, winning Best Actor for Jimmy Stewart and Best Screenplay for Donald Ogden Stewart. While Jimmy Stewart felt his Best Actor Oscar should have gone to Henry Fonda for The Grapes of Wrath, Donald Ogden Stewart was less humble when accepting the award, declaring, "I have no one to thank but myself." Katharine Hepburn took out Best Actress at the New York Film Critics Awards that year. And in 1956, the film was adapted into High Society, an MGM musical starring Bing Crosby, Grace Kelly, Frank Sinatra, Celeste Holm, and Louis Armstrong. What's interesting about this film more than 80 years after its release is the way in which it continues to defy attempts to assign it a genre. Some have called it a romantic comedy, while other film academics suggest it's a screwball comedy because of the film's warring lovers and the use of overlapping dialogue. But unlike a screwball comedy, its dialogue is much less quickfire, and it has sentimentality, sincerity, and sophistication, which sets it set apart from those other screwball films. It's arguable that the film belongs to the comedy of the remarriage subgenre, which was an extension of the screwball comedy that became prominent between 1930s and early 1940s. To get around the restrictions of the production code, filmmakers had their leading characters divorce at the start of the film so they could later flirt and kiss other characters without it being censored. Cukor allowed Katharine Hepburn's character to sustain the sexual tension between the characters played by Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart, creating a double love story which left audiences wondering who Hepburn's character would end up with. This element of intrigue and surprise would be replicated by many other romantic comedies for over the following decades. In addition, the Philadelphia story sets the standard of taste and intelligence, changing the way male and female characters were depicted. George Cukor used strong women like Katharine Hepburn and made the men like Cary Grant less absurdly masculine in various ways. So while this film's genre might remain an open question, there is no doubt the film was decades ahead of its time. This was the 5th most popular movie at the US box office in 1941 and was named the 3rd best film of the year by Film Daily. In 1995, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry, and it's included amongst the 1001 movies you must see before you die. So lots of reasons to see this particular film. It's incredibly charming, it's incredibly funny, it's an incredibly beautifully made film, very sharp, and again leaves you laughing, but also sort of kind of tugs at the heartstrings a little bit as you sort of fall in love with the characters of this particular film. So what I'd suggest you do is that you go to our website, find our virtual screenings page, find the link to this particular film, click on it and watch it, and as always, see what you think. We'd love you to come back, let others know your thoughts about this particular film, and whether you'd recommend it for them also. And then we'll see you back again in the not too distant future for our next Classic Films review. Catch you next time.